In the 1960s, agricultural trials in Britain documented something that should have been biologically impossible. 100 tons of green matter per acre, year after year, on soil so depleted that other crops failed completely. The same plot was harvested 5 times in a single season, regrowing to full size in just 4 weeks. No synthetic fertilizer, no irrigation, no replanting for 20 years. The researchers published their findings. The method was proven beyond dispute, and then it vanished from every agricultural curriculum in the Western world. Today, the global fertilizer industry generates over $200 billion annually. They spend millions convincing you that soil is dead without their products, that growth requires their inputs, that abundance depends on their supply chain. But beneath the surface of every garden, a different truth is waiting, one they spent a century trying to bury. This is the story of deep organic mulching, the method that nature perfected and industry erased. Welcome to Silenced Seeds. Before we break this silence, if these stories matter to you, the best way to preserve this wisdom is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share these seeds with those who need to remember what we forgot. The record opens in Connecticut, 1930. A woman named Ruth Stout stands in her garden. Exhausted. She has spent years doing what every gardener is taught, tilling the soil each spring, pulling weeds through the summer, watering constantly through drought, and buying fertilizer every season. The work never ends. Her back aches. Her hands are raw. She watches her neighbors suffer the same ritual, season after season, convinced this is simply what gardening demands. Then one spring, the man who normally plowed her garden fails to arrive. Ruth waits. Days pass, then weeks. The planting season slips away. In frustration, she walks to a pile of old hay that has been sitting in her yard all winter, grabs an armful, and throws it directly onto her unplowed soil. She pushes aside the hay, drops her seeds into the ground beneath, and covers them back up. What happened next changed everything she understood about growing food. The seeds germinated faster than any she had planted before. The soil beneath the hay stayed moist for days without watering. Weeds that normally invaded every inch of bare ground simply did not appear. When she dug beneath the mulch weeks later, the earth was dark, soft, and crawling with earthworms. Ruth Stout had accidentally rediscovered what nature had been demonstrating for 300 million years on every forest floor on the planet. Organic matter falls, decomposes, and feeds the soil. No tractor required, no bag of fertilizer needed. She never plowed again. For the next 50 years, she grew abundant food by doing almost nothing. She piled spoiled hay 6 to 8 inches thick across her entire garden. When the layer compacted, she added more. She stopped weeding, because weeds could not penetrate the mulch. She stopped watering, because moisture stayed trapped beneath the organic blanket. She stopped buying fertilizer, because the decomposing hay fed her soil better than anything from a factory. Ruth documented everything. She wrote books. She gave lectures across the country. She showed anyone who would listen that the back-breaking labor of conventional gardening was entirely unnecessary. And for a brief moment, people paid attention. In 1961, she published Gardening Without Work. The title alone was a provocation to the agricultural establishment. Extension services dismissed her as eccentric. Garden magazines ignored her findings. But the gardens she grew told a different story. 50 to 60 bushels of potatoes per 1,000 square feet, year after year. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, all thriving in soil that improved every single season. No inputs purchased, no machines required. Just hay, patience, and trust in a process older than agriculture itself. Decades later, the science caught up with what Ruth had proven in her backyard. A comprehensive meta-analysis examining 74 studies with over 1,300 yield observations confirmed her results. Mulching increases crop yields by up to 60%. Another recent analysis, focused specifically on organic mulches, found median yield increases of 22% and mean increases of 46%, with some crops more than doubling their output under deep mulch. The mechanisms are not mysterious. They are measurable and repeatable. Mulched soil retains moisture that bare ground loses to evaporation within hours. Studies show irrigation needs drop from 14 to 70% depending on climate and crop. Temperature swings that stress plants in conventional gardens virtually disappear under a blanket of organic matter. Research demonstrates that organic mulch can lower soil temperatures by more than 10 degrees Celsius during heat waves, while keeping soil warmer through cold snaps and early frosts. But the most profound transformation happens beneath the surface, where science is only beginning to understand. Deep mulching triggers an explosion in soil biology that no synthetic fertilizer can replicate. Beneficial fungi multiply dramatically, forming networks that transport nutrients directly to plant roots across distances that seem impossible. Earthworm populations increase by factors of 10 or more, aerating compacted ground and depositing nutrient-rich castings throughout the root zone. A meta-analysis of 56 studies confirmed that organic practices significantly enhance soil microbial abundance and activity. The mulch does not just feed plants, it builds an entire living ecosystem. So where is this method now? Why is it not taught in every agricultural program, promoted by every extension service, recommended by every gardening magazine in the country? The answer is worth $230 billion. The global synthetic fertilizer market depends on one fundamental assumption: that soil cannot produce abundant food without purchased inputs. Every bag of nitrogen, every jug of phosphorus, every application of potassium represents recurring revenue. The business model requires dependency. It requires farmers and gardeners to return every season, credit card in hand, convinced they cannot grow food without help from a corporation. Deep mulching threatens the entire model. You pile organic material on your garden once. The decomposition releases nutrients slowly, steadily, for months. Earthworms and fungi do the work that fertilizer factories claim to do. And unlike a bag of synthetic nitrogen, the process improves over time. Year 2 is better than year 1. Year 10 is better than year 5. The soil builds wealth instead of depleting it. You cannot patent deep mulching. You cannot sell proprietary hay. You cannot create dependency when the method eliminates the need for inputs entirely. And so the industry responded the only way it knew how. It made you afraid. For decades, agricultural publications repeated a myth called nitrogen robbery. The theory claimed that wood chips and other carbon-rich materials would steal nitrogen from the soil as they decomposed, starving your plants of essential nutrients. The warning spread through extension bulletins, gardening books, and magazine articles until it became accepted wisdom. Do not mulch with wood chips. Do not use uncomposted material near your vegetables. The advice sounded scientific. It was repeated by experts and professors, and it was almost entirely wrong. When researchers actually tested the claim, they found that nitrogen robbery only occurs when carbon-rich materials are tilled into the soil. Surface mulch, the exact method Ruth Stout pioneered, does not steal nitrogen from plant roots. The thin decomposition zone where mulch meets soil may temporarily immobilize some nitrogen, but this zone actually suppresses weed germination. Meanwhile, established plant roots below remain completely unaffected. University studies demonstrated that surface mulch increases soil nitrogen over time as it slowly breaks down. The myth was not corrected because it was convenient. Every gardener scared away from free wood chips represented a customer for bagged fertilizer. Every person convinced that mulching was dangerous became dependent on the system that created the fear. Homeowner associations began citing residents for yards that looked too natural. Municipalities passed ordinances against deep organic matter in residential gardens. The USDA restricted the use of non-certified hay on federal lands. A method that nature uses on every forest floor on Earth was regulated, mocked, and marginalized until most people had never heard of it. But the knowledge never died. In Connecticut, Ruth Stout's gardens kept producing until she was past 90 years old. In Washington state, a man named Paul Gauchi developed his own version using free arborist wood chips, calling it the Back to Eden method. His documentary has been viewed millions of times online. His garden has become a pilgrimage site for people who cannot believe what they are seeing. Trees growing where the climate says they should not. Soil that started as hard clay transformed into dark, rich earth teeming with life. Abundance without the labor that gardening supposedly requires. Today, the method survives in permaculture communities, in backyard experiments, in the hands of gardeners who decided to trust what they could see over what they were told. Every load of wood chips dumped by an arborist represents free fertility. Every bale of spoiled hay a farmer cannot sell becomes someone else's soil builder. The $200 billion industry does not want you to know that the richest gardens grow themselves, that fertility comes from decay, not factories, that the forest floor solved this problem before humans existed. But now you know. You can grow what they silenced. Start with 6 to 8 inches of hay, straw, or wood chips spread directly on your soil. Do not till it in. Do not dig it under. Let it sit and do what organic matter has done for millions of years. Add more as it compacts. Plant through it. Watch the earthworms arrive. Feel the moisture that stays for days instead of hours. And understand that every garden built this way is a quiet rebellion against a system that profits from your dependence. The forest has been teaching this lesson since before humans walked the earth. Maybe it is time we finally listened. If this seed was finally freed for you, subscribe to Silenced Seeds and hit the bell. Every like and every share helps break the silence. The next seed breaks free soon.